So we'll wait just a few minutes for folks to join us. Welcome, everyone. We're just going to wait a few more minutes so that everyone can log on, and then we'll get started. Thank you for being here. Jose, are you good to get started? And then we can, I'm sure other folks might trickle in.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Just nod or, yep, sounds good. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Jose Camacho Martinez. I use he, him pronouns. I'm a program manager with King County's Communities of Opportunity and support COO's community partnership strategy. I'm here with some of my colleagues. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a minute. If we can go to the next slide, please. So today, we'll be sharing the following information, starting with introductions and a brief overview of communities of opportunity and the two strategies, community partnerships and systems policy change. Each strategy request for proposals will have an overview, eligibility, and timeline. Again, these sessions are being recorded for future reference in case you wanted to review them or just so that you know that we're recording these sessions. There is a closed caption option down below in the bottom ribbon when you highlight the screen. Feel free to use that as well. Again, we encourage folks to use the digital functions, down below, like raising your digital hand if you have a question, or just asking that question in the chat. We'll be monitoring that as we go on to help answer questions. But just as a reminder, there will be time to ask questions at the end of each of the info sections, and then one larger group session at the end to, finalize any questions that might come up. Yeah, again, we will get started here with some introductions. We have a pretty decent group of folks. So if you wanted to go, and we'll start with COO colleagues. Again, my name is Jose. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a program manager with COO. If I encourage you to use your name, pronouns, and organization or role in that organization, and I'll pass it off to Blishta here for the next person.
Thank you, Jose. Good morning, everyone. My name is Blish de Lisette. I use she, her pronouns. I work with Communities of Opportunity. I'm part of the King County side of public health. I am the program lead for our community partnerships strategy, which is sort of the place-based culture community partnerships. And I will pass it on to my colleague at King County, Christina.
Hi, everyone. Buenos dias. My name is Cristina Gonzalez, Program Manager with COO, helping support our procurement and operations. I use she, her pronouns, and I want to thank you for being here. Pass it over to Vanessa.
Good morning, everyone. Vanessa Gutierrez. My pronouns are she, her. I am currently a program officer at Seattle Foundation, and I am the project lead for the systems and policy change strategy of Communities of Opportunity. And I will pass it to my colleague, Jill.
Sorry, everyone, I was muted. Hi, I'm Jill. I work with Christina over here at COO. Today's my first day. Everyone's been so nice, and I use she, her pronouns. Thank you for having me. Oh, right. Yes. And I'm going to pass it off to Annette is next in the list.
We'll give Annette a chance to unmute in just a second. Whitney, if you wanted to go next, and then we'll continue on and select folks throughout the group here.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Whitney Johnson, staff with CEO, she, her pronouns, supporting CEO communications. And I will pass it to Harugu.
Hello, everyone. My name is Harugu Kidane, and I'm the Coalition Coordinator for the Rainier Valley Communities of Opportunity. And I'll pass it to Florida.
Hi, I'm Florida, and I am a coordinator with Praise Hallelujah, and I will pass it on to Rachel.
Hi everyone, I'm Rachel Dumanian. I'm with Child Haven. I use she, her pronouns, and it's great to meet all of you. I'll pass it to Fernando.
Hi everyone, my name is Fernando Mejia Ledesma, Jijimel, and I'm the co-executive director at Puget Sound Sage and Sage Leaders. Happy to be here, and I'll pass it to Kristen.
Hi, I'm Kristen, also with Puget Sound Sage. I use she, her pronouns, the Development and Communications Director with Puget Sound Sage. Up to Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie, and I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a grant specialist at Neighbor Care Health. How about pass it along to Carol?
Hi, I'm Carol, and I use she, her pronouns, and I am a program supervisor at Mother Africa. I'm not sure who else hasn't gone. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I think we might have Annette still if they're available, or they can opt out. Other than that, is there anyone else? All right, I think we'll move on. Again, feel free to unmute yourself. Oh, there you are.
Hi, good morning. Sorry about that, got distracted a little bit. I'm Annette Taylor. I'm an assistant agent with Praise Hallelujah.
Awesome, thank you, and welcome everyone. Again, this is the agenda. We'll move to the next slide here, and I'll be discussing and sharing a little bit about COO. So COO is a unique community public-private partnership funded jointly by King County's Best Starts for Kids Levy and the Seattle Foundation. COO is led by a governance group / advisory board that is a majority community member representation. The governance group helps provide strategic leadership, direction, and oversight for the COO initiative. Community of Opportunities mission is to create greater health, social, economic, and racial equity in King County so that all people thrive and prosper regardless of race or place. As a strategic program for Best Starts for Kids levy, which was passed by voters in August 2021, COO has funding to continue our work until 2027 and will be releasing requests for proposals later this year. The governance group is responsible for promoting COO's mission, vision, and values, and serves as the COO Best Starts for Kids Advisory Board with respect to the COO portion of Best Starts for Kids levy proceeds. Next slide, please, Blista. So COO focuses our resource in 3 interconnected strategies. We believe the most meaningful, just, and sustainable solutions are generated in partnership with communities who know what they need to be healthy and thrive. In recognition of the strengths that reside in communities, COO supports community partnerships and organizations as they build community connections that promote equity in health, housing, and economic opportunities for their communities. In addition, COO supports community engaged or community-led efforts to transform systems and policies for stronger community connections, economic opportunity, better health and/or housing that will decrease and/or prevent continued inequities in low-income communities and communities of color in King County. And lastly, COO's learning community leverages the power of collective knowledge to accelerate change. COO provides resources to support experiences and activities that deepen a shared understanding and analysis of the root causes of inequities. Next slide, please. COO invests in community-led solutions for all people in King County and are connected to community, thrive economically, are healthy, and have quality, affordable housing. These are COO's 4 result areas, and I would like to hand it off to Blista to share more information regarding the Community Partnership RFP.
Thank you, Jose. So before I go into talking about our community partnership strategy, I want to spend a few minutes just talking about sort of what is it that, how do we define partnership? How are we going to describe partnership? And so as you look at this slide, you know, I will be using the word partnership. However, partnerships could mean coalitions, alliances, collaboratives, network. But just to keep it straightforward, I'll use the word partnership and just know that it encompasses a lot more just than the term partnerships. So we're looking for a partnership that sees themselves engaging in movement building. So that movement building could be on a specific issue, but it needs to be connected to place or culture community because that is what we're funding. That this partnership already has completed an analysis of its landscape, so has a sense of what is happening in their communities and is mobilizing a base or has already mobilized a base of folks, community folks, the folks most impacted by whatever the inequities are that they're focusing on, and has established existing relationship with other power building organizations so that they're connected with other community organizations within that community group, whether it's geographically or culturally, that they can leverage resources to grow their base and their power, and that the partnership is focused on building and creating healthy and healing relationships, both among their members as well as other partners. And so when we are talking about community partnerships, COO works with coalition partnerships in neighborhoods and culture communities to advance better health, safe and affordable housing, increased economic opportunity, and stronger community connections for residents. And so that means that we're supporting partnerships that are reflective of and embedded in their communities and that are drawing on the strengths and assets of these communities in order to achieve their long-term goals. We're looking for partnerships that are working at the root cause of the challenges that their communities are facing And we are looking for partnerships that have a shared vision and a clear decision-making model, and working to shift power, as well as focusing on inequities by race and place. Just to give you a few examples of the type of activities that community partnerships will support. So we can support the convening of the partnership, the collaborative, to meet on a regular basis, to develop and to work on the shared agenda, as well as strategies. We will support mobilizing communities that are most impacted or affected by these inequities in order to develop a solution or solutions that are getting at the root cause. We will support activities that are on developing community leaders so that they can thus develop the strategies that drive the solutions. We will support implementing these strategies. And it's important to note that these strategies need to intersect across CO's 4 result areas. And then we will support the process of engaging community power building. And so now to get into sort of just a quick overview of the RFP. So we will have approximately $2.5 to $2.9 million per year for this specific strategy. And again, it's to develop a shared agenda, to work on root causes of inequities, develop solutions that contribute to CO's 4 result areas. The investments amount are to be determined. We are now working with a work group, and this work group is both trying to help us determine how much money per year we would be giving out to each partnership, as well as the number of partnerships that we will fund. However, the duration of the funding will be for about 3 years, with the possibility of a 1 to 2 year extension, of course, pending on the availability of funding as well as the performance of the grant recipient. In terms of eligibility, I want to just again emphasize that we're looking to fund partnerships that have identified an issue with solutions that have potential to impact inequities at the intersection of health, housing, economic opportunity, and community connections. For COO, we will only fund geographically partnerships that fall under the lowest 20th percentile. And in the next slide, I'll show you a map that sort of speaks to what COO's community index of health and well-being indicators are. We are also looking to fund isolated rural communities. And so those are rural communities that can show that they have significant disparities compared to areas in which they're located. And they have other indicators of disparities, which may result in poor health and well-being outcomes. And then we're also funding culture communities, which include people who share common characteristics and are experiencing disparate health and well-being outcomes. And wanted to just let folks know that data or information collected by community groups will be accepted to define health and well-being inequities, specifically in the isolated rural communities and the culture communities. And as I mentioned, when I'm talking about partnerships, it's community-based organizations, individual networks, coalition, tribes, health boards, school districts, housing and community development organizations, faith-based organizations, et cetera, et cetera. The activities that will not be funded are any projects that are related to research, epidemiological projects, any capital projects or construction projects. We won't fund any individual or direct services. And the funding cannot be used to replace other King County funding. And this funding, specifically the funding that comes from King County's community partnership work, cannot fund lobbying. And as I mentioned, this is the map that shows you sort of where we are in the percentiles. So the composite that COO is looking at in order to create this, the percentile is life expectancy, obesity, smoking, diabetes, mental distress, being 200% below poverty level, poor housing condition, unemployed, as well as uninsured between the ages of 18 to 64. And this map will be available on our website. And so you'll be able to put your information in and see where you fall in terms of the index. Now I want to just give you an overview of the timeline. The RFP will be released on Wednesday, August 17th. And we will have an information session and it will take place either on August 22nd or the August 29th. As you see up there, dates listed are subject to change. And so we will try to get information to you as soon as possible when these dates do change. The proposal will be due at 2 p.m. Via our Zoom grants, and you'll also have information will be put in that when we release the RFP on Thursday, October 6th. And if it's applicable, we will plan to have interviews the week of October 31st, and hopefully we'll be making selections the week of November 14th. So now I will take a minute and see if there are any questions. I am in presenter mode, so I cannot see everyone. And so if there are questions that came up in the chat, or if there are folks who are raising their hands, I can't see them, please let me know.
Bushra, thank you. There was one question in the chat, and it asked if you can talk about the highest 20th percentile in the composite.
Yeah, and actually I misspoke. It's when I said the lowest, it should be the highest percentile. And so the darker blue would be the areas in which we would be looking to fund. And that means that when we look at sort of these composites, this is, these are the communities that have the highest rates of obesity, the highest rates of diabetes, the highest rates of folks who are living 200% below the poverty level. So these are the areas in which we would be looking to fund, as you can see. And that is only for the geographic. Obviously, it would be different for isolated rural communities as well as culture communities. Any other questions? If you want to take a minute and sort of let it soak in, there will be an opportunity at the end after my colleague Vanessa does her presentation, and then we can just take questions for all. So I will, if there are no questions, I will pass it on to my colleague Vanessa.
Thank you so much, Blishda. And just looking to follow your example on definitions, we're going to talk about systems and policy change. That term is very general. It covers a lot of activities. So we need to break them up like in smaller pieces, right? I think when we talk about policy change, we're referring to challenging like written laws, regulations, guidelines that have a widespread application and that change with little to no frequency because of complex modification processes or by bureaucracy. And when we talk about policy, we talk about everything from regulations at a local level, school district policies, formal statewide and national legislation. When we talk about systems change, we're referring to transforming those ways in which organizations in different sectors interact with each other in an ongoing way. So a system level changes require like cross-sector collaboration and partnership between organizations. Okay, so systems and policy change, COO believes that sustainable change cannot be achieved without changing the broader structures that created inequities. And by that, we're referring to systems and policy change, as I just mentioned. So Seattle Foundation manages the funding of this strategy, which includes public and private philanthropic resources. I want to highlight and highly emphasize that King County funds are restricted from use in political campaigns or lobbying. However, grantees can utilize private philanthropic funds for everything related to policy advocacy. So the things that are not allowed by public funds, you can use private philanthropic resources for. And I will dig a little bit deeper into that in a while. But the goals of this funding strategy are to increase the readiness and ability of groups led by communities most affected by inequity across King County to inform, improve, and guide implementation of systems and policies. Also to support community-led efforts, well-positioned to inform, improve, or guide implementation of specific systems and policies that contribute to better community connections, economic opportunity, health, and housing. And also increase connection, relationship, and partnerships among grantees engaging in systems and policy change work, as well as other communities of opportunity efforts. Next slide, please. So here we have an overview on the RFP. There is approximately $2.2 million to $2.5 million available a year. And as I mentioned, the purpose is to support policy work as a mechanism for systems change. In pursuit of this, the strategy will provide support for organizing activities that are focused on the long-term policy and or systems change defined by the applicant. Investments, we have not determined them yet, so we're in the process of determining, and we'll hopefully have more details for you in the future. And then the duration of this RFP will be multi-year awards to support activities taking place between January 1st, 2023 through December 31st, 2024. So that's 2 years, right? And then awards may be extended for an additional 12 months, but it all depends on funding availability and grant award performance. And again, number of awards, it's also to be determined because we're trying to, to be thoughtful of how we allocate all these different funds for all the different kinds of coalitions and grantees that apply. So here, oh, sorry, next slide, thank you. So these are some examples of activities that systems and policy change will support. So again, going back to my comment from before, our intent is to prioritize funding organizations and coalitions that are able to identify specific policies and systems. So we are hoping to see organizations being clear in terms of which systems and policies they are looking to organize around, maybe develop, modify, or implement or evaluate, while clearly articulating how the policy change they are looking to work on fits into the larger picture of systems change, right? So this means that we will no longer include like general base building just for the sake of just building, right? Or doing community engagement just for the sake of doing community engagement. But the goal is to support all those organizations doing very intentional, clear work to change those regulations, those policies that are clearly affecting different systems. And again, you as the grantees would be the ones to determine what that looks like. So for example, mobilizing a broad base of community individuals and partners that are looking to advocate for equitable policy research, development, modification, implementation, and or evaluation on clearly defined issues. Everything related to contacting those with power to make decisions and affect change on specific policies or systems. Implementing specific policies that are looking to advance social justice at a local, county, and national level, and also staffing of roles that lead systems and policy change work, or that are directly related to systems and policy change efforts. So everything related to communication leads, organizers, folks that are going to be educating community on what systems and policy change means, specific policies that are affecting specific communities, those kinds of activities, those are the ones we are looking to support. Next slide, please. So eligibility for systems and policy change. We are looking for 501c3 organizations or organizations with a 501c3 fiscal sponsor that are working in King County, Washington, and that are seeking to make policy change at the neighborhood, city, county, or state level, or school district, as I mentioned before. So we are also looking for tribes and tribal organizations that are looking to do this kind of work in King County, and also schools and school districts. Please note that it is very important to highlight that the organizations that apply for this strategy in particular, they need to be doing policy and systems change work. And that's something that I'm going to keep repeating myself on. So what that means is that you need to have a long-term plan that is clear and addresses specific systems and policies. And again, activities that are not eligible are some of the ones that Blishta mentioned: epidemiological projects, capital projects, construction projects, individual or direct services, and funds. Also, funds may not be used to supplant other county funding. Please note that lobbying is included in that column because public funds cannot be utilized for lobbying. So King County dollars cannot go to lobbying activities. But our Seattle Foundation private philanthropic dollars can definitely be used for lobbying. So yeah, I just want to make that distinction very clear because it's not entirely, yeah, I just want to make it clear because the funds that you get directly from Seattle Foundation, you will be able to use in any way. Those dollars are more flexible, obviously, because they don't come from government. Okay, next slide, please. So the timeline that we're proposing is very similar to the one that Blishta shared earlier. The RFP will be issued on Wednesday, August 17th. Then we will have an information session. Please remember that all these dates are subject to change, but we will keep you posted on any updates. But we're thinking like in that week of August or around August 24th, we will be holding our information session. Then the proposal, and this changes, differs a little bit from what Blishta said. Our proposal is going to be due Thursday, October 6th by midnight, so 11:59 p.m. via Seattle Foundation's website, which is called Foundant. I'm including the link just for your reference in case you'd like to apply and start creating your profile in this website that we call Foundant. And then in February, we will be giving notice of selection for systems and policy change grantees, but the contract will be backdated to start in January of 2023. Next slide, please. And yeah, do you have any questions that you would like to share? Please feel free to use the chat box. And do you have any questions about any of the two strategies?
Yes, I would like to encourage folks to either go off mute or raise their hand, and we can start taking questions again for both of the RFPs. And just to be clear, there are two different RFPs. It's not the same application for both, or one that you would do that would cover all of this. This would be something where you are distinguishing whether community partnerships make sense for you or systems policy change, or if you're approaching both, what are the separate lenses that you're using to address the questions there. So I'll pause now and I'll open it up for questions and let an awkward pause or silence take the space if we need to.
Thank you to all the presenters. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I can wait.
Okay, two questions. One question for you, Vanessa. Hi, Vanessa. Good to see you again. So when it comes to, you know, as you know, with movement building, sometimes you come up with a plan, a strategy that you think is going to work. But then as you deploy the strategy, implement it, you know, sometimes you want to change. How flexible are you when it comes to thinking about that? And then the other question is, just to make sure that I'm clear, are folks that getting encouraged to apply for one of the routes or both of them, or yeah, just a little bit more guidance on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. And I'll focus on systems and policy change, and I'll let Blishta speak to, or Jose speak to the other strategy. But I would say that we are very flexible in terms of Seattle Foundation, and we let organizations adapt to the changing needs and priorities from community members. What is definitely key is that you keep in mind that the long-term strategy, or the policy that you want to improve, change, implement, right? Like that's what really matters to us. the process to get there, you will determine how you want to get there. And we will be supportive if you need to change the approach for some reason. You know, with things such as the pandemic and coronavirus, we had to see that and we had to adapt and let our grantees like do as they needed. So please know that there's always that willingness to just encourage you to keep adapting to the needs of the community and the priorities. And we can always do that like via conversation, you know, that kind of thing. It doesn't need to be like a very complex process. What's important to us is that you have it very clear in your head. Hey, this is the system that we want to change. This is the policy that we want to change, but we're changing the way how we are getting there, right? And in terms of the two strategies, like in my head, well, and Blishta, I'll let you speak to it because of community partnerships, but organizations can definitely apply to both strategies if they fulfill the requirements for both of them. I do not think that's discouraged, but I'll let Blishta speak to that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Vanessa. So to answer the first question, I 100% agree with Vanessa. Yes, things happen and you need to shift and change, and that makes sense. However, we wouldn't anticipate that you'd be sort of changing through your ultimate end goal, right? That whatever that vision is that you as a partnership have come up with and the issue that you're working on, that you're still focused on that. The strategies that you may have laid out in your application, on your work plan, might need to be changed because of both internal and external situations. We're absolutely fine with that. What I would say that distinguishes us, you know, community partnerships from systems and policy is the biggest thing is that we are funding only like partnerships. So it's more than one organization or one individual. It needs to be a group, and whatever, you know, the group is comprised of is dependent on that partnership. So it's not just one individual. The second thing I think that also distinguishes us is unlike Seattle Foundation, we do not have the additional funding that we would be able to offer to our partnerships for them to engage in lobbying. And so if you know that the work that you are proposing will involve and engage in lobbying, then I would encourage you to apply to the Systems and Policy Change RFP. If you know the work that you are proposing comes with a partnership and you are looking at root causes and you are looking at solutions, and once you get to the solutions, you may determine that there might be a need to do lobbying, and that is when you would probably look for additional funding or other types of funding in order to move to that level of lobbying. However, as we all know, there's a lot that one can do, from, you know, individual person sort of identifying an issue, mobilizing, and to getting to lobbying. And so you can do all of that work within the partnership, but you cannot cross the line into lobbying. So that's the major distinction.
Great questions. My question is for you, Vanessa. With regards to the policy change, I'm really excited to see this approach to, there are other VSK priorities that are really funding the direct service part. So it's exciting to see the policy work. And it's exciting that I think more and more organizations, including Child Haven, are starting to do both within the same nonprofit. And we're on that path. I guess my question for you is, especially when thinking about like the funding being used for like an individual who's kind of leading that work, does that need to be a brand new position, or could this be supplemental funding to a role that has recently started, you know, that would have started before that like January time?
Thank you, Rachel. That's a really good question. It can be a newly created or a continuing effort. It can be either of those. What we care and prioritize mostly is, again, the end result. Is this a role going to be focused on doing this work to get to that end result that you specify from the beginning? If the answer is yes, definitely. It can definitely be included under this line of funding.
Thank you.
Thanks. I do see a question in the chat. I'm happy to read it out loud, and then if you wanted to follow up, feel free to do so. The question is, will partnerships be built between agency that receives community partnership funding? If you wanted to clarify any of that, or you feel like that's good to go, Blista or Vanessa, feel free to go.
Could you repeat the question so I'm clear on it?
I'll go ahead and ask directly. So you had just mentioned about building partnerships or having partnerships with other agencies. And I was wondering, with the funding, with the community building funding, would that be something that once agencies are funded, that it'd be like a cohort of agencies working together, or is it separate?
So what we would be funding an already sort of established partnership, and King County would contract with one entity, so a 501c3 or an organization or group that has a 501c3 fiscal sponsor. And that's one individual organization group. Again, it could be whatever that entity is. They then would be the one contracted with us. However, they are applying for this funding as part of a partnership. And so they would need to describe their partnerships, members, and that could include various other nonprofit organizations, other entities, whatever those other entities are, community members. What we will ask though is that there's some type of memorandum of agreement or some type of commitment letter or something amongst the members, so that we're clear that everybody who's listed in the application has agreed to work together, understand what it is that they are applying for, and are clear in terms of what the expectations are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. And I did see another question in the chat. It says, what's the average award size per agency, and what's the criteria for the amount?
For what I will say for partnerships, we haven't determined what the average award size will be. But what I want to emphasize, though, is that this is not funding to necessarily fund different activities with different organizations. We anticipate that there will be funding available to help bring the partners to the table. So the time and effort and energy that they will need to be at the table, that there will be funding available to provide stipends and incentive to community partners who will be at the table, who will be coming to work on these issues. And then there will be funding available to focus on whatever the specific solution, activity, strategy is that the partnership has identified that they want to move forward. And so there is not per se an expectation that each partner will receive funding to do a specific activity. However, we are expecting that all partnership members who are at the table and who've asked for that. We've had partnerships where they've had government entities or other large nonprofits, and they have asked not to receive funding because they don't need the funding. They're there because they have other funding that gives them the opportunity to be at the table. So the funding is not for individual organizations, but to have organizations, groups, entities come to the table to identify and work on a solution related to a specific issue, again, that intersects CO's 4 result areas.
Thank you, Blishta. And as for systems and policy change, we also have not determined yet the award size. That's something that will be determined in the future. And then in terms of criteria, we also don't have it set right now, but what I can share based on what we have discussed like here internally and what I shared with you earlier today is that we are looking for organizations that are focused on communities experiencing like significant social, racial, and economic inequities, We want to make sure that those closest to the problem are closest to the solution, right? So we want, but that are often like the furthest from the resources and power. I think that criteria is that these organizations are able to express in a very concrete way which specific policies and systems they're seeking to develop, to modify, to change, or organize around. I also think that that the fact that there is community engagement, like that's also something that is going to be helpful for folks. The fact that these organizations are not just guessing which system or policy they're going to be working on, but that they can be very specific and concrete, and also show that they have some experience and knowledge on the matter or the system or the policy. Like that's something that we appreciate. And also that there is collaboration, right? That you're not doing this work in silos. It doesn't mean that we need 10,000 partners, or that we need, or that we need like very specific partners that we're looking for now. It just means that you are showing us that you can work in collaboration with the rest of the community, as opposed to just in a silo by yourself, in a way that is definitely not aligned with cross sector collaboration, right? But again, like the criteria will be like more clearly specified once the RFP goes live.
Again, feel free to add a question to the chat or go unmute. We will also be sharing some contact information in just a bit in case something does come up, you have a question, but there are also kind of folks that won't be able to communicate after a certain period of time. So again, this might be the best time to ask that question if you have it. I'll go back on mute.
So I do have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Very brief question. I know I already asked one, but I think this one is brief. I believe I missed this. Vanessa, can you remind me, is the funding opportunity for more than 1 year?
Yeah, so it's for 2 years, but then it can be extended for another 12 months, depending on funding availability and the performance of the grantee.
Thank you so much. Blishta, I believe I saw that the community partnerships one is multiple years as well.
Blishta, you're on mute.
Sorry, and I muted myself after I unmuted myself. So yes, it is for up to 3 years with the possibility to go up to 5 years with extensions, depending again on the availability of funding as well as the performance of the grantees. So I have up our contact information. If you have specific questions around community partnerships, feel free to email me. I will say on my end that I can receive emails and respond to emails up until the day the RFP is released. And then once the RFP is released, all questions, inquiries, concerns will go through our King County Procurement Office. And so and the reason for that is that any questions that are asked after that will need to be made available to everyone. And so those questions will be posted and shared, so they cannot come directly to me. So and you'll have information on who to email and who to contact once the RFP is released. That information will be in the RFP. But that is for my specific RFP. I'll let Vanessa let you know sort of to what point you can connect with her.
Yeah, thank you, Blishta. Since we are a philanthropic organization, not subjected to the same rules as King County, then you can reach out to me anytime. Please do give me some time to respond, but I am including my email once again in the chat box in case it's easier for you to copy and paste. Feel free to reach out anytime, hopefully before the RFP is due. I usually expect a lot of emails and calls on the last day, so please plan ahead. Thank you, Blishta.
I'll follow up all of that by saying that there will be TA available as well for folks who are interested in getting a little bit of additional support. So technical assistance will be available through BSK. So it will not necessarily be myself or another COO staff member, but someone who might be able to help answer questions and help in formatting or just address maybe something that's kind of stuck out to you and you're not quite sure how to approach it. Again, technical assistance will be available throughout the process so that folks have the best opportunity to submit on time.
So we can stay on, on the Zoom line for a bit. However, that's all the information that we have. Again, you have our email addresses. Feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for coming to hear about our RFPs. You will get a lot more information, obviously, on August 17th when it's released. However, as I mentioned, we are working with a work group and still in the process of fine tuning and writing the request for proposals. So stay tuned for more. And I believe that there's a way for you to stay connected and receive information when the RFP is released. I think just through the BSK website. Whitney or Christina, do you know exactly?
Yeah, if you are signed up to the BSK blog, you'll get the information about our RFPs as well as any others that are released. And we'll also send an email out to everyone that registered for this session. And hi to baby Lennon.
Oh, yes. Lennon is one of our RFP reviewers. And so it would be really good to get to know her. And she's really tough. So she'll be reviewing our RFPs for us. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a wonderful long weekend if you will be having a long weekend. And we look forward to seeing your proposals. We look forward to getting your questions. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you to my colleagues for all your help and